A humble janitor from Vermont named Ronald Reed spent his entire life sweeping floors and fixing gas pumps, yet he passed away with over $8 million in the bank. Around the exact same time, a brilliant Harvard-educated finance executive named Richard Fosconi went completely bankrupt after aggressively overextending his massive real estate holdings. Think about that contrast for a second. How does an ordinary guy with zero formal training completely outperform a Wall Street titan who has every single intellectual advantage in the world? The Bill Gates anomaly. It comes down to a core idea from Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money. Housel completely flips everything we think we know about personal finance on its head. He argues that financial success isn't about your raw cognitive abilities. It's a direct reflection of your daily behavioral choices. It's about how you behave. We'll get into the exact mechanism of how that quiet janitor secretly hoarded his massive fortune in a minute. But first, you've got to understand how the invisible forces of risk dictate your financial path. Take the astronomical rise of Bill Gates in the early days of personal computing. Everyone recognizes his incredible work ethic and his immense technical genius as the primary drivers of his massive success. But we frequently forget a massive detail. In the late 1960s, Gates happened to attend one of the only high schools in the entire world that actually owned a computer terminal. That tiny geographic accident gave him thousands of hours of advanced programming practice before the vast majority of the global population even knew what a keyboard looked like. His entry into that specific school was a 1 in a million stroke of luck that completely altered the trajectory of human history. Housel uses this story to show that the world's far too complex for your individual actions to dictate 100% of your financial outcomes. Now look at the other side of that exact same coin through the tragic story of his closest high school classmate, Kent Evans. Kent was equally brilliant, fiercely disciplined, and completely shared the same obsession with mastering the future of computer software. The two boys spent countless nights dreaming about building the ultimate technology company together. But before graduation, Kent died in an extremely rare mountaineering accident while climbing a peak. He experienced a 1 in a million stroke of negative risk that completely ended his life and his dreams before they could ever begin. Two equally talented minds experienced completely opposite financial destinies because of forces entirely outside their personal control. These twin stories demonstrate that every financial outcome is a complex mixture of individual effort, random luck, and systemic risk. You can execute a business plan flawlessly and still suffer a total loss because of a sudden market shift outside your control. You can also make a series of terrible financial blunders and walk away with a massive profit simply because you caught a lucky economic wave. Humility dictates that you should refuse to take all the personal credit when your investments surge higher. You've also got to avoid absorbing all the internal blame when a carefully researched asset unexpectedly plummets to zero. Accepting the massive role of luck allows you to build a financial strategy that can gracefully survive the unexpected. The game of never enough. This ties directly into a dangerous psychological trap Housel talks about, which is the game of never enough. The ultimate trap in modern wealth building involves a complete lack of a personal financial ceiling. You've probably noticed how people who already possess tens of millions of dollars will willingly risk their entire life savings to chase even more money. This dangerous behavior happens because the psychological goalposts of success constantly move forward as your net worth increases. You earn a highly respectable salary until you meet a colleague who makes twice as much as you do. Then you purchase a magnificent luxury vehicle until your neighbor parks an even more expensive sports car in their driveway. Look at the catastrophic collapse of Sam Bankman-Fried and his cryptocurrency empire. It serves as a modern textbook example of this exact phenomenon. By the age of 29, this young entrepreneur had amassed a personal fortune exceeding $20 billion through his trading platform. He'd achieved enough financial security to fund multiple generations of his family while enjoying total personal independence. But he refused to stop climbing because the internal concept of having enough money was completely absent from his psychological framework. He quietly mismanaged billions of dollars of customer deposits to chase global political influence and total industry domination. His multi-billion-dollar empire disintegrated into absolute nothingness within a matter of days, leading to a swift arrest and permanent public disgrace. Housel warns that risking what you desperately need for what you don't even require represents pure financial insanity. The relentless desire to impress other people will cloud your analytical judgment and push you toward catastrophic leverage. Social media feeds this toxic cycle by constantly broadcasting the top 1% of lifestyles directly into your subconscious mind. You'll end up playing an endless game of comparison that literally has no natural ceiling. The ancient Romans understood that envy represents a bottomless pit that success can never fully satisfy. Julius Caesar famously wept when looking at a statue of Alexander the Great because he felt his own massive military achievements were entirely inadequate by comparison. You can only win this psychological game by consciously choosing to step off the competitive ladder entirely. Winning requires you to establish a fixed definition of what enough means for your specific lifestyle and your long-term peace of mind. True financial victory means protecting that boundary at all costs from the creeping disease of lifestyle inflation. The Ferrari illusion. Another core paradigm from the book centers on how we view material possessions. Most people harbor a deep desire to be admired and respected by their peers. We unconsciously begin to believe that driving a sleek foreign sports car or wearing a luxury timepiece will automatically secure that social validation. This brings us to Housel's famous observation known as the man in the car paradox. When you spot a beautiful $100,000 Ferrari cruising down a city street, you rarely think about the actual driver of that vehicle. You instantly project yourself into the driver's seat and imagine how cool everyone else would think you look. Housel actually developed this concept while working as a valet at a high-end hotel in Los Angeles. He watched wealthy individuals roll up in spectacular sports cars, realizing that he never once looked at the drivers themselves. He only imagined how prestigious he'd feel if he owned the keys to those vehicles. The harsh truth is that nobody's actually paying attention to the person who purchased the luxury item. Every onlooker is completely consumed with their own intense desires to be noticed, liked, and validated. They view your expensive possessions merely as a mirror reflecting who they wish they could become in their own lives. Using your hard-earned cash to buy flashy toys for attention represents an incredibly weak and inefficient social strategy. True respect and endearing admiration originate from human traits like humility, kindness, and deep empathy. This psychological blind spot leads directly into the dangerous trap of confusing a high-spending lifestyle with genuine wealth. We tend to judge financial success entirely by the material objects we can visibly see on display. You see an acquaintance driving an exceptionally expensive SUV and instantly assume they possess a massive amount of money. The invisible reality often involves a staggering mountain of high-interest debt and intense monthly stress behind closed doors. Housel explicitly defines looking rich as a game of high-level consumption designed to gather short-term praise from strangers. He defines true wealth as a silent endeavor that prioritizes your future peace of mind over temporary social status. Wealth consists entirely of the financial assets you choose to accumulate over time. It grows through the quiet preservation of your liquid funds, your untouched brokerage accounts, and the equity that generates total freedom over your daily schedule. Spending money to show people how much money you have remains the fastest path to having absolutely nothing left. The Warren Buffett paradox. Let's resolve the mystery of Ronald Reed, the quiet Vermont janitor who left behind an $8 million fortune. His spectacular secret involved absolutely no high-stakes stock trading, complex option strategies, or inside corporate information. He simply saved a modest portion of his regular income every single month and invested it into rock-solid blue-chip companies. He then allowed those investments to sit completely undisturbed for multiple decades while compound interest did the heavy lifting. His ultimate superpower was his extreme patience and his ability to stay in the game longer than anyone else. This aligns perfectly with Housel's focus on the incredible magic of compounding. Our human brains are fundamentally unequipped to grasp the sheer explosive magnitude of compounding over long horizons. We constantly search for the highest annual returns or the hottest new asset class to accelerate our journey to wealth. The legendary track record of Warren Buffett offers a perfect illustration of how time completely trumps raw investing talent. Right now, his total personal net worth sits at approximately $160 billion. The mind-bending details show that over $156 billion of that massive fortune arrived after his 65th birthday. Buffett began his dedicated investing journey at the tender age of 10 and accumulated his first million by age 30. He achieved his massive fortune by starting his investing journey incredibly early and staying in the game for over 8 decades. His phenomenal wealth stems primarily from consistency and longevity rather than chasing risky short-term spikes. If he'd started investing in his 30s and retired comfortably in his 60s, his name would be completely unknown to the public. Wealth creation follows the exact trajectory of a slowly growing towering oak tree that expands steadily over many decades. The best investors look for good returns repeated for an uninterrupted period of time. Housel also introduces the concept of tail events, explaining that a tiny percentage of decisions dictate the vast majority of investment success. Let's look closely at the actual mathematics of Berkshire Hathaway to understand how compounding functions. Buffett owned hundreds of distinct corporate entities throughout his legendary career. The vast majority of his extraordinary net worth can be traced directly to a small handful of exceptional companies. His early purchase of Coca-Cola shares represents a classic example of a massive winner that carried his entire portfolio for decades. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune if you let your rare winners run indefinitely. The ultimate dividend. This brings us to the deepest financial paradigm shift of all within Housel's work, which concerns the actual purpose of the currency you're accumulating. Most young guys assume that wealth serves as a tool to acquire luxury goods, exotic travel, and elite social standing. Housel makes a powerful case that the highest dividend that money can ever pay you is absolute control over your personal time. Having the ability to wake up every single morning and choose exactly what you want to do is the ultimate luxury. True happiness correlates directly with human autonomy and the freedom to dictate your own daily schedule. Think about the severe mental toll of working a high-paying job where you have zero personal flexibility or control. Even if you genuinely enjoy your career, executing tasks under the strict timeline of a demanding boss can easily breed deep resentment. Many high earners live in a state of gilded captivity, completely trapped by massive mortgages and heavy lifestyle expenses. They're constantly forced to check emails late at night and sacrifice their weekends just to maintain a fragile illusion of success. They've effectively traded their irreplaceable lifespan for a collection of shiny objects that their peers barely notice. You can break free from this societal trap by realizing that building wealth depends heavily on your willingness to suppress your own ego. Saving money represents the exact mathematical gap between your current income and your personal desire for validation. You can significantly increase your financial freedom today by choosing to live well below your actual means. Needing less material stuff gives you an immediate, massive advantage over someone who makes millions but spends every single dime. A robust emergency fund provides you with the invaluable option to walk away from a toxic workplace or wait for a truly exceptional career opportunity. Housel argues that you should view market volatility as a standard entrance fee. It represents the emotional cost of admission for long-term market gains. Achieving financial peace requires you to handle this emotional cost without panicking during market downturns. You've also got to define your own personal time horizon and aggressively filter out the noise generated by people playing a completely different game. A short-term day trader operates under an entirely different set of rules than a long-term retirement investor. Copying the financial moves of random people on the internet will inevitably expose you to risks you're completely unprepared to handle. Ultimately, the psychology of money teaches us that managing your behavior matters infinitely more than optimizing a complex mathematical spreadsheet. You don't need to be a financial wizard to build an extraordinary life of complete independence and peace of mind. You simply need to remain consistent, cultivate humility, and let the relentless power of time do the heavy lifting for you. Accumulating wealth requires excellent offensive skills like optimism, boldness, and a willingness to take risks. Maintaining that wealth requires an entirely separate set of defensive skills centered around humility, caution, and a healthy fear of the unexpected.